Hi, my name is Virginia Wilson, Compliance Contract Officer with the County of Riverside Purchasing and Fleet Services Department. Welcome to part 3 of our 4-part series on doing business with Riverside County.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lawrence, Vice President of Underwriting and Sales at South Coast Surety.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Hunter, Senior Risk Analyst for the County of Riverside, and today we will present Section 3.
Please follow along closely. My goal is to leave you guys with something tangible. My intent is to give you a basic introduction to the surety product so that you can understand what those specs say when you have to have one, and to show you how the bond pre-qualification process works so that you will not be caught off guard and it will not be a pain point for you. This vendor training is empowering all of us to be able to do business with Riverside County. I myself am going to get my diploma, my little certificate. I'm looking forward to it. So we're almost ready to enter into the certified vendor ranks and to meet the buyers. One of the last arrows that we must add to our quiver is bonding. So let's get to it. The reason this slide is called "and bonding" is because normally it's insurance and bonding. There you go. Why is surety bonding always an issue in public works? You have the good, I'm going to go over the good and the challenging piece of surety bonding. The good side of surety bonding is it deals with surety, fair dealing, and tax dollars. Surety bonds guarantee that the work that needs to get done is actually done, and that vendors, suppliers, subcontractors, and laborers get paid. That's good, right? That's good. As taxpayers, we want what we pay for, right? Bonds are used in construction work, and they are used in service contract type work. So everybody knows that surety bonds are needed on public works, schools, roads, renovations, things like that. But they are also used for service type work, janitorial contracts, security guard contracts, software installation contracts, integration contracts, outsourced facilities management contracts. These days, we're actually seeing bond requirements for management of jails and prisons. Okay? So surety bonding is big business. It supports a system of fair dealing. So how does that work? You said you could do the work for the price you quoted in the time allotted, right? Bonds hold you to that promise, okay? No lowballing to win the contract and then refusing to do the work because you want more money. Bonding nips all of that kind of stuff in the bud, and that's good for us, taxpayers. Okay, bonding protects tax dollars. Taxpayers want our public servants to use our money wisely. Nothing makes you mad like somebody mismanaging your tax dollars, right? Ooh-wee, my goodness. Taxpayers want the money to be used wisely. Doing business with a bonded contractor guarantees that we get the work we paid for at a price that proves itself to be competitive. As Virginia described last session, responsible and responsive. So what's the tough part about bonding? So far I gave you all the good stuff, right? Of course I start with all the good stuff. I'm a surety person. All right, so what makes bonding so hard? It has absolutely nothing to do with bonding. It has everything to do with preparation. Timing, preparedness, and insight. Have we been pre-qualified for bonding before we actually need it? Are we prepared to actually provide the bond? Are we ready to go? And do you know what to do to get that first bond or that increased bond limit that you need to go after that larger project? When I asked the question, are you prepared to provide the bond? Bonds are actually, okay, so you got to be pre-qualified and then you have to reach out to a surety agent or to your insurance agent that has some surety background, and then you have to pay for the bond up front. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Bonds are not cancelable. They're not like insurance at all. And then the issue of being pre-qualified and the issue of being ready to do this, your surety profile is actually in your hands, right? I'm going to give you some hints and some tips that you can use so that you can prepare yourself so that you can be ready. So, how can you get the bonds you need for your Riverside County contract? First things first, bonding is not insurance. Let me hear you guys say that.
Bonding is not insurance.
I know, huh? Right? It's just not. It's nothing like insurance. It's actually much more like banking. Okay? Bonding is a three-party contract. So your surety bond is a three-party contract. It always has the contractor, the surety, and in this case, Riverside County. The name that we use to describe the contractor is called principal. And there's no quiz after this except for the online people. Right? Principal. And then the surety is the surety. And for all intents and purposes, the sureties are insurance companies. So you buy surety bonds from an insurance company, but it doesn't work like an insurance product. And then the obligee, and you'll see that language in bond forms, in this case is Riverside County. Compare, contrast, bonding 3 parties, insurance 2 parties. Because this bond includes Riverside County is the third party, is the obligee. When you buy insurance, there's only you and your insurance carrier. Bonds protect third parties exclusively. It protects your clients. It does not protect you. It's not related to an accident, so no. That's insurance. That's for the next guy to talk about. It's not cancelable. And because the bond is not cancelable, premium has to be prepaid for the most part. Contractor must qualify. Remember me saying it's like banking? So you have to qualify. With that being said, Tracy's first hot tip of the day. Expect your surety representative to ask you lots of personal questions. No questions about what kind of trucks you drive, no questions about what kind of sprinklers you have in the building, none of those types of questions. Questions like, how long have you been in business? Who owns the shares of the company? You know, what does your credit look like? You know, can I see your financial statements? It's like banking. The contractor indemnifies the surety company. Okay, so compare, contrast, right? On insurance, like when you have your commercial auto and you're driving your truck down the, what's that, the 215, and you have an accident, right? And they decide to come and file a lawsuit against you. They're coming after your assets, right? Because your truck caused the issue. Surety is not like that. It was an accident. The insurance company takes care of you because you paid a premium. When there is a surety claim, you broke a promise. You promised Riverside County and the taxpayers and your neighbors that you were going to deliver the very product or service or the project on time. But for some odd reason, you did not do that. The surety company will make Riverside County whole, will take care of the taxpayers, but they are definitely coming back to talk to you about that matter because you caused the claim. That's contractor indemnifies surety. And just so everyone knows, it's business indemnification, it's personal, it's spousal. If you have assets in a trust, it's trust, okay? Now, these are things that you guys are going to know that everybody else may not know yet, because generally speaking, surety people don't have a lot of opportunities to talk about the intricacies of how it works. But this is how it works. I'm giving you guys insider info today. True or false? Surety is a three-party contract. That was the first thing. Acknowledge that surety is not like insurance. The second thing is to get yourself a surety bond professional. Your insurance agent may be able to take care of that for you. If not, you want to ask them to get you to a surety bond professional, or you want to look at the NASBP, which is the National Association of Surety Bond Professionals, because you're going to need some coaching. And then the third thing to do is to start and complete the bond pre-qualification process. You guys ready? Oh, come on now. All right, let's go. We're going to make some money in here today. All right, let's take a brief look at the county's bond forms. We're going to start with the bid bond form. The bid bond secures the bid and guarantees that the most responsive and most responsible bidder, the winner, will enter into the contract for the work at the price and terms and conditions proposed. I actually took this off Riverside County's website. There's a copy of it in your folder. I want to point out that the highlighted area says, if the aforesaid principal shall be awarded the contract upon said quote, and shall, within the required number of days after the notice of such award, execute a written memorial of the awarded contract and submit the required bonds, then this obligation is null and void. So the bid bond keeps that lowballing guy from changing the game after the fact. Okay? He's not here today. Well, she's not here today. Okay? Let's take a look at the performance bond. Okay, the performance bond provides a guarantee that the work itself will be completed satisfactorily. In the highlighted area, the condition of this obligation is such that whereas the principal did enter into the contract, here to attach, and then it puts the specifics. Now, therefore, if the principal, that's you, contractor, shall well and truly perform and fulfill all the undertakings, covenants, terms, conditions, and agreements of said contract during the original term of said contract and any extension thereof that may be granted by the county, so on and so forth, then this obligation is void. Otherwise, to remain in full force and effect. All bid bonds work the same. All performance bonds work the same. All payment bonds work the same. They may respond to different statutes or rules or ordinances, but the general how they work is the same. Here's an example of a Riverside County payment bond form. And as you can see, this one is specifically referencing a particular project that Riverside County had awarded. And it says, in conjunction with certain public works contract dated, and then it puts the specifics of the contract that you have, right? And then it says, the beneficiaries of this bond are as stated in the civil code. Short version is not you. Okay? It's suppliers, it's vendors, it's subcontractors, it's laborers. So for those of you in here that are actually going through this process so that you could be a supplier to Riverside County so that you can sell product, well, if you are selling product on a public works contract, and let's say you're selling it to the public works contractor, it's a good thing for you that the county requires the public works contractor to actually post a payment bond. It makes sure that you get paid. In the last 12 months, one of the interesting things that I've seen regarding payment bonds is there used to be a rule for labor. There used to be a rule for how long labor could have an issue. That time period has been extended. It went from a 90-day window to an 18-month window. Yes. And right now, in this day and time of prevailing wage, how many contractors I got out there? Hold your hand up so I can see. Okay, all right, so I'm speaking your language right now, right? Okay, in this day and time of prevailing wage, old days used to have 90 days for an employee to have an issue with you on a public works project. Now, they've got 18 months to take issue with you. And if you guys are thinking that the state of California, this is Riverside County, you remember in session 2 when Virginia was explaining it depends on where the funding comes from? Right? Okay, so if the funding comes from the state or the feds or what have you, they get the right to make their rules apply. The bond pre-qualification process. Remember I said it's like banking? Okay, the bond pre-qualification process for surety bonds is, the foundation of it is character, capacity, and capital. Okay? Character deals with your credit. In that section, we're talking about honesty and integrity. Your supplier references. Will they say good things about you? Would you say good things about that GC that you supplied product to? What's your reputation in your industry? Are you known to do what you say, deliver on your promise? Bank references. Remember I said personal questions? They're going to ask, who do you bank with? What type of line of credit do you have with them? Would they be willing to extend a larger line if you got a larger project? Personal credit. Personal credit, I'm going to take a few seconds and talk about this. I've been doing this for a very long time. And these days, personal credit, I've got a lot more options than even 5 years ago. Personal credit was such an issue because good credit is easier to get bonds. Challenge credit, not so much so. Credit also impacts pricing. So when you're trying to figure out pricing, this is one of the things that your surety agent and your surety underwriter are going to use to price it for you. It's going to come into play. And to give you some idea of the change from how it used to be to how it is, 5 years ago, if you had a bankruptcy, there was no surety bonding for you. It's just not going to happen. These days, if you have a bankruptcy in your personal credit history, you still may qualify for bonding, provided it's been discharged. Different sureties have different rules for that. Generally speaking, they want to see it discharged at least a year. Now, all of this came after the economic issues that we had in 2008, right? Because if we were going to still be applying the same rules from before, they'd have even less contractors to choose from. And that's totally counter to what this whole program is about. So it's good news for me to be able to say that we can now do some things that we could not do in this area. Personal credit, they're looking at all owners, and they're looking at spouses. Okay? So if it's a group of 3, everybody's got 33 and a third, they're pulling everybody's credit and they're taking a peek. Character, communication with stakeholders. It's not that they don't expect you to ever have a claim issue or somebody not happy with you. It's how you communicate in those instances, okay? So when they're doing reference checks and things like that, I'll give you an example of like one of the questions they asked. So let's say you're the GC and you're the sub. What's your name? John? Don? And what's your name? Paul. Okay, so I'm going to call up Paul's company to ask about Don. Hi, Paul, this is Tracy. I need to do a reference check on Don. He gave me your name and number, specifically about the Cesar Chavez Library project. Do you have a few minutes? Okay, I need to know, what was the contract value of that project? Oh, did he finish the work on time? Excellent. Were there any issues that you had to overcome during the project? Excellent, excellent. Would you use him again in the future? Excellent, excellent. And what's your title, Paul? Thank you very much for taking my call. All right. in the event that Paul would have said, yeah, there was one little issue, that's okay. I would have asked more questions. So how was Don's communication during the issue? Did he make himself available to fix the problem? You didn't have to chase him down, did you? Right? That's a character problem. Well, let's talk about your capacity. Let's talk about what the surety company is willing to support you on. Okay, so they talk about job references. Paul said that Don could do a $5 million job. He said it was done on time and that he was satisfied and that he would use him again. Okay? When I'm talking to Don about that particular job, I'm asking him about the scope of work. So what did you do over there? If I find out that Don is a flooring specialist, then he's going to be able to qualify for bonds for flooring. Do you think he's going to get a bond for roofing? Man, you guys should be underwriters. Do you know how many times we get a request where somebody is like trying to do something outside of their normal scope? Yeah, and there's always a reason. There's always a reason why they think it's a good idea. But I can tell you, insider information, it makes your underwriter nervous. Experience, we're talking size, scope, and territory. Where do you actually do the business? Personnel, who do you have on your staff? There's a question in the applications talking about key personnel. How many years experience do they have? What kind of equipment do you have to actually do the work? If you're going to be a road builder, we want you to have some equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Systems and cost reporting. This is a big issue, okay? Do you know how you are performing on the contracts you have? Do you have an accounting system that keeps up with, well, when I bid this job, I was expecting a 15% profit margin or 17% profit margin. Do you have a system in place that will tell you halfway through the job that something's going crazy, right? Big deal. One of the things that you want to do, the better your system is for that, the more your surety company will accept your internal financials. And we'll talk about that in capital. Backlog compatibility is what you're doing, what you always do. And from a backlog perspective, if you already have $5 million in work, which is real nice, right? You got $5 million in work. Well, and now you're asking, can we get a bid bond on this $1.5 million job? If your financials, your personnel, your equipment, and all of that can support that, yeah, you probably can get that. If not, you may have to wait a little bit, right? From a timing perspective, work some of that $5 million off, right? Okay, and then contract and bond form review. Once you're pre-qualified as the contractor, then you actually have the project itself, right? And then that's when those things like scope of work comes into play. Things like liquidated damages come into play. There are certain things that surety companies just cringe at. So you start seeing the large GC who has like the big contract. In his big contract, he may have liquidated damages of $10,000 a day. And if you're not paying attention, he will pass his liquidated damages down to you. But your subcontract's only $300,000. $10,000 a day? Oh my goodness. Your surety professional will say that's a form review issue, and even though your company is pre-qualified, the project itself, you're going to have that discussion, okay? All right, so now, character, you guys are the good guys, all right? Everybody has capacity to do work. That's why we're all in here. We're ready to add some more to our backlog. Let's talk about money. Just for the record, this is Tracy's favorite subject. It's very near and dear to me. All right, capital, working capital. You know, what does your company have as working capital? Net worth. What's the net worth of your company? Net worth, if you've never been bonded before, you probably have a habit of taking the money out of the company, right? So you can avoid double taxation or whatever reason you have for taking money out of the company. If you know that you're about to move into public works and it needs substantial bonding, it's time to build your net worth. Build it. Let it stay in the company. We'll talk about that when we talk about strategies. Profitability. Is your company profitable? Now, one of the things that surety underwriters get really nervous about is not that you had a loss, not even that you had 2 losses year to year, like 2012, 2013. It's the moment you hit the 3rd year of losses. Okay? Now things have changed, right? Financial presentation. This is a big one. Okay? How many of you guys have CPAs already? Excellent, excellent. Your CPA may understand surety. That's ideal if you do public works because you can speak to him and say, or her, and say, I need to qualify for surety bonding. That professional that understands surety will do the right type of financial presentation for you. And when I say the right type, I mean a type that actually supports your business objectives, right? So to give you one of the biggest pain points for financial presentation, okay? Drum roll. Thank you, thank you. It's the issue of a financial statement that's great for the IRS versus a financial statement that is great for surety bonding. The 2 are counter. Okay, so if you have that CPA that's really good at making sure you don't give Uncle Sam much of anything, you need to say to him, that's the old business model I was working with. I'm planning to get a lot of contracts with Virginia, and I need some surety bonding support, so you cannot make me look broke anymore, buddy old pal. Right? And you have to be ready. You have to be ready to expect to pay some taxes, right? Right? Go to the part about taxpayers, right? We just like that, right? It makes us feel better that you're on contracts we pay for when you pay taxes. So financial presentation is a big deal. You can have a compilation, you can have a review, or you can have an audit. Generally speaking, a compilation will support your bond needs up to about $600,000, $700,000 on a project, okay? On a review, you can go up to maybe $2 to $3 million on a project, and beyond that, you want to get an audit because now you're going after bigger contracts, your $5 million deal on a regular basis, okay? Line of credit, they always want to know that you have a line of credit, that it is available to you, and they will ask you how much is in use. And then cash flow. One of the things that we saw in session 2, he gave us a sample contract, right? And in the sample contract, it had all of the clauses for the standard terms and conditions for Riverside County. Payment terms is one of these things for cash flow, okay? So as you are looking at things to pursue, you want to make sure that if your first draw is like 60 days away, then item number 1, working capital, has a greater impact on the underwriting. That makes sense? Yep, if your first draw is 90 days away, you really need some number 1. We agree? Yes. Right. Excellent. True or false? The 3 C's of surety are capital, character, and collateral. Okay, so now that we understand the process of getting bonded, what do we do next? And this is your homework for today, because this is the end of my presentation. Inside your folder, one of the things that was in there is a self-evaluation. It's got 15 questions on it. It deals with character, capital, and capacity. You rate yourself from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Wherever you are right now, it's okay, as long as you're not in the same place this time next year. okay? The whole point of even having to endure what I'm saying is to take something that you can use and to apply it. That self-evaluation form allows you to just look at your company yourself, and you can mark yourself up. And then maybe this time next year, you pull it out, and you see, have you made some adjustments? Because your surety profile is actually in your hand. Based on what you've learned so far, are you ready to bond a Riverside County contract? In which areas can you adjust so that you can strengthen your bond profile? Surety requires strategy. Nobody can do this without strategy. It will frustrate you to no end. It will make you very irritable if you don't have strategy. You want to develop some short-term and some long-term strategies to obtain the bonding you need. And when I say that, what I'm saying to you is, if you've got a major credit issue in 2014, you need to put yourself on a plan to take care of it over the next year or 2 years, right? If you have the wrong financial reporting, now is the time to call your CPA to say, hey, I need to talk so that I can make some adjustments, because in 2015, I'm going after all of Virginia's work. Every bid that Rita puts out, I am submitting a proposal, and I need some surety support. Those are the kinds of things that you have to plan ahead and forecast your bond needs. Establish your relationship with the surety agent, set yourself some goals and deadlines, and commit to the process. Earlier, someone asked me if you buy bonding for a specific project. Yes, it's extremely specific. In every form, it references the actual bonded contract. It does not bleed over into some other bonded job. It doesn't work that way. It's this particular project, this is the protection for it. And because it's specific, if the project itself only takes 4 months, some will think that bonding is a 4-month proposition. It's not. It's not an event proposition. It's a revenue lifestyle proposition. And I told you guys I love to talk about money. Okay, so if you are if you are thinking about how to grow your top line over time, and you've never done a bonded job yet, okay, maybe on your strategies, you want to bid your first one in 2014. You want to fill out your application and bid your first one, right? Let them give you some feedback, because she says that they do debriefing, right? Bid your second one. And then in 2015, maybe you're like, I'm going to get 2 bonded projects, right? And even though the projects are quick, the bonding process is continual, which is why this says commit to it for 24 to 36 months, because it's going to take you some time to make the adjustments necessary. Now, work your plan. Work it. It works when you work it. And the one thing a thought I want to leave you with. For those of you that do business with large GCs, okay, and they will say, don't worry, I will carry you on my bond, okay? That sounds really good, doesn't it? Right? Okay, I'm going to tell you why you should be thinking just a little bit differently. That large GC would not be a large GC without his own bonding. He would not get a single contract without his own bonding. So when he tells you, don't worry, I will carry you, and you say yes, and you don't put any strategy in place, you are deciding to always be underneath someone or be small. They need bonding support, and you need bonding support. Even if it takes you a year, 2 years, whatever. Work on it so that you can use it.
Good morning. We're just going to go ahead and get started. You guys heard in the bonding and heard everything you need to have is getting to the point where, okay, I got everything I need. I have my bonding. I have all my paperwork. But then we get held up by the insurance part. And Oftentimes, my office get phone calls on top of phone calls because they have a contractor, everything's ready to go, except they don't meet the insurance requirements. And one thing I got to tell you right off the bat, we're more than insurance. Risk management is more than insurance. Everyone here has some form of risk management. You do it every time you put your seatbelt on in your car. You make a risk management decision whether you're going to put a seatbelt on or not put a seatbelt on. A seatbelt's not going to stop your accident, prevent an accident, but it could reduce the impact of the accident. That's what part of this insurance is. Insurance is a form of risk management that can help reduce impacts, so to speak. So with that, we go with our first page. There are two methods that the county use. The county insurance requirements are intended to protect the assets of the county when entering into their contracts. When the county go into a contract with a vendor or contractor, in a sense, same thing, one of the reasons they're doing it is because, one, either they don't have the manpower, they can't allocate certain people to do certain things, they don't have the expertise to do it, and also it's easier to hire a contractor to do certain services. The services can range from being working food services at the hospital, to transporting patients from the hospital, to being a subcontractor on projects. One of the things I do as far as property, anytime we're doing a construction project that is in the $20 million and above range, that's when our office get directly involved in something called an OSIP, which is an owner-controlled insurance program. That is where all the insurance is controlled by the owner, which is the county. There's certain wording and language that we use in contracts that are somewhat different than other insurance contracts or insurance languages, but nonetheless, it still comes down to insurance, so to speak. So the first part of that, the two methods, is indemnification. We require the contractor to identify, defend, and hold harmless the county for any losses, claims, liability, etc. that may arise in connection with the service provided under contract. The reason that's there is you're doing the job. You're responsible for the job. That's one reason why we hired you, because you're the expert on the job. Without that indemnification language, which a lot of contractors have problems with, the contract would not go through. We're not going to do the contract because that protects the county, as you are now an agent on the county. You're acting on behalf of the county. If you have a project that requires driving and one of your drivers hits someone, damage other property, yes, you did the job, but without that language, they will come back to the county. That kind of defeats the purpose of even having you as a contractor. I don't know if you can read the insurance parts. The financial tool used to meet the indemnification obligation, basically saying you're agreeing to identify the county, hold the county harmless, and you're doing so by having XYZ type of insurance. Insurance provides funds to pay for losses that occur and provides protections to both the county and the contractor. As we know, insurance helps you keep money in your pocket. That's why you pay a premium. Same as when you have your auto insurance. There's also self-insured. If you self-insured, anyone familiar with self-insurance? Okay. If you're self-insured, the state has authorized you and you have proven that you're able to maintain a certain level to handle your financial losses. The county, anything above $500,000, we want to see your financial records. We want to be sure you can handle your financial losses. Just some basic terminology. Insured, the party who pays the premium for specific coverage from an insurance product. That would be you as a contractor. The broker, those who place insurance contracts with underwriters. It's important that you work closely with your broker when you're working with the county. Some language is different. Some limits, depending on what your service you're providing, is higher than most. There's a section. How many of you guys have this book here? Page 19 says, bidders shall submit evidence of all required insurance listed in the solicitation. Proposals must include with their submissions a current certificate of insurance or signed statement indicating the proposer understands the insurance requirements and will comply in full if awarded a contract. Reason I bring this up, because contracts get awarded and then we get a dispute from the contractor saying, well, can we negotiate the insurance? That is not acceptable. Oftentimes, I get a phone call where the contractor has this and that, and they want to know if we can change the language. For me, I tell that person who called and go to the next bidder. Simple as that. One, we don't get the time. Two, when they submitted their bid, they read the insurance language and they agreed to it. And then now they get the bid, it's time for the service, and now they want to change the language. That is not acceptable. That is getting tighter and tighter in the county. There was a time in the past when we would work with the language, we would work with the vendor, but now that is getting tighter, so I implore you to make sure that you work with your broker. When you see a bid document come out, you ask your broker, can we get this coverage? Can we meet this coverage prior to you submitting your bid? Also, if you turn to the next page, at the top, it says, the county does not want bidders to purchase additional insurance unless they award a contract. That's important. Don't buy it if you don't need it. You haven't got the bid yet. But all you want to make sure is that your broker or agent, through you guys, you can and you will be able to obtain this. The other portion of this is when you submit your bid, that is once again the cost of doing business. Now you know what it's going to cost you to obtain XYZ insurance, and you can put that in part of your bid. Very important. We also get that where people say, well, it's cost too much, or just an example. I've had people upset that it cost them an additional $1,200 for general liability insurance, and they argue, but the contract is a $2 million contract. It's part of doing business. So they're willing to give up $2 million over $1,200. Don't fall into that. Okay. These are just general words as part of in your package. Binders, policies, premiums, endorsements, and exclusions. We're going to get that endorsement. We're going to get there coming soon, so to speak. Insurance requirements are typically included in county contracts through the insurance language section. The insurance section explains the type and amounts of insurance required in the contract and details the contractor's responsibility to provide proof insurance as part of page 19. It is clear cut. It would start off with the whole harmless and indemnification section, something we'll get to, or it would say insurance requirements. Depending on the agreement, depending on what services you provided, some of that would not apply. But the wording would say if contractor has employees, if the use of vehicles is part of the agreement. That language, keep in mind, if. That doesn't mean it's going to come out. That doesn't mean you have to use it. If your contract doesn't require that you're using vehicles, obviously that doesn't apply to you. But in the event during that contract process, you will be using vehicles, it's already in there. The if part for employees, if you are a sole proprietor, it's just you, your spouse, your immediate children, workers' compensation doesn't apply to you. But if you have employees, and we use the language as defined by the state of California, that's important. You are going to need to have the workers' compensation coverage. The county uses a variety of standard insurance language based on the type of work performed and the dollar value of the contract. We have a basic standard, but we also can modify depending on the agreement. Oftentimes we get the contract ahead of time. This is the scope of service. Our office, we ask questions, what is being done, how it's being done, where it's being done. The most important thing for our department is the who, the what, the where, the when. The how is also important, but that's being transferred over to the contractor. Oftentimes that is determining the amount of the insurance requirement. Another thing is important. It does not go off the size of the contract. Remember that. Some people say, well, my contract is only $50,000. Why do I need $1 million insurance? It's the exposure to loss, the probability of loss, the consequences of the loss. If your contract is to transport people, it only take one accident. If you have a van of 10 people, yeah, you're only getting paid $50,000 a year, well, we require $1 million liability policy because of the exposure to loss, and the probability of loss is great. It's always a 50-50 chance an accident is going to occur as long as the vehicle's moving, and the consequences of the loss. 10 people, serious accident, you're looking at $1 million apiece, if not more. The insurance language is part of the contract, and insurance requirements are enforceable terms of the contract, meaning it means exactly what it says. It's part of the contract, just like the language of scope of service and so forth. That is part of the contract. It cannot be ignored. That's why it's there. Should not be ignored. Here's some sample language. If you see here, we start off with insurance. This is what you will always find this in our agreements. Without limiting or diminishing the contractor's obligation to identify and or hold harmless the county. Contractors shall procure and maintain or cause to be maintained at his sole cost and expense the following insurance coverage during the terms of this agreement. A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, how it would be. Opposed to listing everybody, we just narrowed it down to the county. It was a point where you had to list the county Riverside as agencies, districts, special district department, their respective directors, office, boards, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I don't even remember all of it myself. You had to list everybody saying that we're going to hold them harmless on this. It's just the county. All you got to do is put the county. You don't have to put, even on the endorsements that we get to that, all you got to do is say the county. That encompasses all. Certain language, you see, if the contractor has employees, remember that you will often see workers' compensation in your contract even if you're a sole proprietor. Once again, that's in there in the event your business starts blowing up, it starts doing well, you start seeing a good turnaround, you hire employees. That's what you want your business to do, right? You want to be able to hire employees, right? You want to be able to hire employees. So that's why that portion is in there. So if you have a contract and it's just you and you say, well, I don't need this, I don't have employees, keep in mind that word if is there. If. Commercial general liability, you're doing business, you should have commercial general liability no matter what. That protects you, your personal assets. You insuring your business. This protects you where we have the policy limit of liability should not be less than $1 million per occurrence. That is our general, but depends on the scope of service. Once again, it's not based on the size of your contract, it's the scope of service. That could be dropped down to $500,000. The difference between $500,000 and $1 million in your insurance depends on also your history, type of business you do, so on and so forth. But generally, it's on average, it's not a huge amount of money. To have $1 million coverage is usually only about $1,200 a year. Depends on the type of business you do. Vehicle liability, once again, if vehicles or mobile equipment includes contractor equipment as well, are used in the performance of an obligation. Performance of the obligation. Key word. Performance of the obligations. If you say, well, I just work from home or whatever, yet you have to come to the county building or office to go pick up anything or whatever, that's part of the obligation of the contract. Keep that in mind. Under this agreement, then the contractor shall maintain liability insurance for all owned, non-owned, or hired vehicles. We'll come back to that. So use an amount of no less than $1 million per occurrence. The bottom part is professional liability. That's basically for any accountants, doctors, engineers, lawyers, someone who is more of their brain than their physical. I mean, the county is using their expertise of their knowledge, not so much in the expertise of their actual physical performance, if that makes sense. Okay, this is the whole harmless identification. Am I going too fast? No. Oh, speed up, huh? Speed up. All right. Yeah. Whole harmless and identification language is basically almost similar things. In contract, that language, this is the language that transferred the risk from one organization to another, meaning the county is transferring the risk from us to you. That's why we're hiring you once again. You are the expert. You're doing the job. There's no supervision from us. Yes, there's contractual guidelines, but we're hiring you to do a job. Very important to understand this part. Note that a whole harmless clause may also be referred to as an identification clause. This clause should be specifically spell out the responsibilities of your entity and the contractor. It will identify which type of losses the parties to the agreement will be responsible for. You often find even the county will have a portion of the indemnification. We're responsible for this, this, and that. You're responsible for this, this, and that. The county does do mutual hold harmless, but it's generally only when we do it with other government entities. I frown on mutual hold harmlesses. Typically, this is limited to your actions and our activities. Need to remember that. Your actions and our activities. That can also be your inaction, meaning if there was a known issue and it was not corrected. You knew that XYZ driver had a problem before. You knew that this equipment was faulty, but I'm going to try it one more time. Things like that. The activities self-explanatory, things you did, things that led to the incident, led to the accident. It could just been just your normal course of business, whatever that is. How many building contractors we have? You guys know this well. Okay. This is the types, the general types, the commercial general liability, the vehicle liability, workers' compensation, professional liability. Basically covers bodily injury, property damage, personal and advertising injury, products, and completed operations. Something that this is generally after the job has been done. Almost like a warranty, but kind of sound. County requirements is $1 million per occurrence, $2 million general aggregate, additional insured endorsement. The general aggregate basically, and very basic, is the amount per plane per year. True or false? The county insurance requirements are intended to protect the assets of the county. Vehicle liability covers vehicles including bodily injury and property damage used to provide services or deliver goods, any auto, hired autos, non-owned autos. You want to make sure to avoid everything. Just have your broker provide any auto. That just eliminates everything. Hired autos is somebody you hired to deliver something for you, or someone you hired to do something for you. Non-owned autos, employees, meaning it's not owned by the company, but the employee is using it to deliver good. Just an example, the county covers employees for non-owned autos, meaning if I drove over here and I was involved in an accident, I'm coming here on county business. It's my personal business using my car, but I'm coming here on county business. If I was to cause serious accidents, because everybody thinks county has deep pockets, they could go after the county. Non-owned auto. Now, my personal liability insurance is primary, but the county could also be sued on top of my primary. Same thing with your business. So you want to make sure to avoid any conflicts, just go any auto. That covers everything. Once again, minimum requirements is $1 million plus 2 and additional insured endorsements. Oftentimes, vehicle liability could also be included in your commercial general liability coverage as well. So make sure you check that. Make sure your broker does not give you double coverage. Okay? Workers' compensations cover employees on the job injuries, claims for lost wages, basic workers' comp. Not required, once again, for sole proprietors. That includes the proprietor, the spouse, and their immediate kids. Once again, we put county requirements $1 million per person, but we don't require any more than what the state obligates you to have. Professional, well, let me go back to auto. Depending on your type of service that you're doing, and your type of business, your personal auto insurance may have the limits necessary. May. And that's something else that could come back to us. It may have the limits necessary. Once again, it depends on the scope of service of what you're providing to the county. Just want to make sure I say that. Don't want to throw anybody away. Professional liability, once again, applies to architects, engineers, consultants, doctors, and lawyers. And on this note, and accountants, if you have a personal accountant for your business, you want to make sure they have professional liability. You're relying on their expertise. County requires $1 million and 2, must continue 5 years beyond the termination of the agreement, what's called a 5-year tail. Other types of coverage is excess umbrella liability. Excess umbrella, if you have a $500,000 general liability policy and you have an umbrella that covers that $1 million threshold, we would accept that. Property, fire, casualty. Property, it should be property, fire, and casualty. Pollution liability depends on what type of service you're doing. Crime coverage, builder's risk, special events. The list goes on. You know what your scope of service is. You know what your business rules are. And it's all outlined in the products that is produced in order for you to put your bid in the first place. What is an additional insured endorsement? This also comes up a lot of times in questions from vendors because you guys don't know this terminology, and that's fine. You don't have to be an expert. It's important that you have a general knowledge because you're going to be working with your broker, and your broker you need to be able to explain to your broker what you need, and it's also important that you understand what you're receiving back and why. The additional insured endorsement, and we're going to get into certificate of insurance down the road, is a person or organization other than name insured who's protected under an insurance policy, in this case the county. Your insurance, we will be named as an additional insured. Basic, meaning that we are covered under your policy. Other parties who are not original party to the insurance contract who are named later to receive the same benefits of insurance coverage as the original party insured to the contract. It's important to understand that your insurance policy is a contract. It's a contract between you and the carrier. We're being added to the contract. That's basically what additional insured is, okay? We have the same rights, so to speak, in event. We don't want any businesses going out of business. We don't want that. But if you did work in, say, 2012, you changed insurance carriers. At the time, your project that you did in 2012 was covered by XYZ insurance. It turns out to be a default of whatever. We'll go back to that policy. We don't go after you. We go after the insurance policy. Okay. What is the purpose of being named an additional insured? It reinforces the contractual transfer of risk away from the county back to the vendor, providing the goods or service. Obtain third-party rights to the policy defense in the event of a lawsuit. I just said, being named as additional insured on a vendor's policy provides the county with insurance coverage and defense costs under the vendor's policy up to the policy limits instead of under the county's policy. This additional level of protection is necessary because we have no control of what you guys do or your employees, so that's why we want that. I know it sounds like we just coming down, this, that, but basically you just go about your business and we just become a part of your insurance policy. Counties require additional insurance link as respect to insurance section only. This is the language that you was fine. The county herein refers to, we already mentioned all that already, policy should name the county as additional insured. Evidence of insurance. You guys familiar with certificate of insurance? Okay. Also with your identification card in your car when you have insurance, that's basically a certificate of insurance. Certificate of insurance is a quick reference to the types and amounts of coverage. It shows insurance companies, policies, and certificate holders along with policy dates. Word to the wise, a certificate of insurance is worth no more than this piece of paper right here. It's worthless. All it is just a quick glance. Okay, they have this, they have this, they have that. It's a checklist, so to speak. The meat and potatoes is the endorsement because that is naming us as, that shows that we are an additional insured. Amends are modifications to policies. An endorsement is issued separately. Endorsement language appearing on the certificate of insurance is non-binding and does not meet the county requirements, meaning if it's on a certificate, it's just a reference only. Endorsements are required to prove the county has been added as an insured to the policy or that subrogation has been waived in favor of the county. Contract language for insurance says work shall not commence until this is in the hand of the buyer. If it's not in the hand, you cannot commence the work. That's why, once again, it's important once you see what the bid requirements are, contact your broker or your agent. Say, hey, can we meet this? I'm going to submit a bid. And once the bid is received, once the bid is rewarded, all you got to do is say, okay, activate it, bam, there you go. You always want to do that because sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it can take up to 2 to 3 weeks depending on the carrier. But at least we know that this is coming. That's where the certificate comes in. It tells us this is on its way. True or false? Additional insured endorsements adds the County of Riverside to the contractor's general liability policy. How do you read a certificate of insurance? I know that's a mess, but it's important you guys have a copy of this in your package. Oftentimes we see these things completely wrong. It's important that you have these things. We got these numbers, we got them numbered here, and there's a reason why. The most often problems with certificates of insurance is either this number right here, which it says the NAIC number, that's missing. That number identifies identifies the insurance carrier, and it helps us find that through our research on the AM Best. We'll get into that as well. Other thing right here, this may be lower than what is required. It says $1 million on the contract. Sometimes this will come $500,000. Or the general aggregate right here will come $2 million. We often have the policy is going to expire prior to the commencement of work. That's not good. I've seen manipulation of, you be careful with these brokers, you got to really work, your broker works for you. I've seen this white out here with the name of the company we ask him for. The policy number here doesn't match, and we'll go to the endorsement. The policy number here has to match the policy number endorsements. Another red flag. Right here, the additional insured box isn't marked. The waiver of subrogation boxes aren't marked. The contract calls for occurrence, and they send it to us claims made. All these things delay you proceeding with your contract and your agreement. Also, we mentioned before umbrella liability. This umbrella is on top. That's what an umbrella is. It's covering the general. It has to match. Both have to occur. There's times where we see occur here and claims made down here. That sits back to Virginia, who contact you, who go back to the broker. Delays. That's why it's important that you understand what this is. Workers' compensation always should have a Y there saying yes, waiver of subrogation. This portion here, number 10, it's important that this has some reference to what is being done. And it's pretty clear. You'd be surprised. It says description of operation, location, vehicles, on the accord additional information if you want to put it. It would have nothing in here. Or it would just say County of Riverside. It's important that it at least describes or have the contract number. That's easy for Virginia to look and say, okay, this reference such as this contract. Down here, this is through our flood control, Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. That's fine, but County of Riverside is just as good. And it needs to be signed. So when your broker, this is a good checklist for yourself. When your broker does send something back to you, do their own checklist, because it's going to get kicked back and it's going to slow things up and it's going to delay your project, it's going to delay your contract. AM Best rating. One thing we do is we look at the history of this insurance company. We go back, we can go back 20 years to see what their trend is, make sure that everything's current. If they had an A7, A-7 for the last 10 years, they're not going anywhere. They're fine. But it's important that you start off with an A7, not A-7. Not rated companies, lower rated companies, and self-insurance required waivers to be approved. That's risk management. Not all waivers requests will be approved. Company ratings can slip. It's important that you monitor your own insurance company, and this caused a non-compliance issue. I am aware that certain county departments are looking into software to monitor certificates of insurance, where they will be able to find out if an insurance company, although it met the insurance rating on when you initiate the contract, halfway into the contract, the insurance ratings went down. So it's important that you also monitor your own carrier, because that protects you. You can go to the AM Best website, which is basically it's ambest.com, and you can look up your own insurance carrier and see what your rating is. Additional insured endorsements, once again, it adds the County of Riverside to the contractor's general liability policy. Losses caused by the acts of negligence of the contractor, county must be named correctly on the endorsement. I know that's simple. It says County of Riverside, but you'd be surprised how often that doesn't come up correct. What's the difference between a certificate holder and additional insured? Certificate holders, county gets a copy of the certificate, sees the address, see address on contact information slide. We already did that. Additional insured, county is added to the policy. Once again, a certificate is not worth anything. If your broker said, well, I can provide you a certificate and that should satisfy the requirement for the insurance, no. It's the additional insured endorsement. The county is added to the policy. It says in most cases, county needs to be a certificate holder and additional insured. In all cases, the county needs to be a certificate holder and additional insured. Other considerations, consider risk when determining the amount of coverage needed. That's how we look at it. Remember, the risk, not the dollar amount of the agreement, determines the required insurance limits, amounts of insurance needed to cover potential loss. It's not the size of your contract, it's the exposure to loss and potential loss. This right here is what an additional insured that the county likes to accept. You see where the policy number on there should be at the top. I mentioned before that the policy number should match the certificate of insurance where it lists policies. If it's not matching, Virginia will send it to me or what have you, or she'll pick it up and she'll kick it all the way back, once again, showing delay. Everything here is marked are typical issues that would delay your project that you do not, this is minor. It does not have to delay your project if you're ahead of the game. Simple, that's why we put it in there again. Name of person or organization, County of Riverside. The section number 6, where it says who is an insured, I have seen cut and paste of these documents so they can put what we want in there, which is admitted to include as an insured the person or organization showed in the schedule, but only with respect to liability arising out of your ongoing operations performed for that insured. I've seen that section where 6A all the way down to 1-2 cut and paste with a different heading. And not only they mess it up with a different heading, they have these letters right here, different endorsement numbers. That's a red flag. This endorsement number, these are part of this as a whole. We don't produce this. Insurance Service Office produce these. So they would have this cut and paste in a different form, which tells that's a red flag for me, and it should be a red flag for you. Other considerations, review certificates of insurance endorsements to make sure they're in order and meet the county standards. Very important before you submit it. That's one part of this checklist. Make sure it meets the county standards. You read the contract. Don't just say, I don't understand this insurance stuff. I'm going to send it over to my broker to interpret. It's pretty cut and dry. If you're doing XYZ service, you need workers' compensation. If you don't have employees, you don't need workers' compensation. You're generally always going to need general liability. And so it lays out $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. It lays out what you need. Discuss issues concerned with risk management. You can call our office. The front desk number is 951-955-3540. Okay? Set up a reminder tracking system for expiration dates, because if you don't, we will. This is Jim Sessions as the risk manager for the County of Riverside, and I'm the, I don't want to say heir apparent, but we'll see. But that's my number as well. And I know it says, yeah, 3540-3540. Feel free. You can take my email address down there as well, which is jlhunter@rc-hr.com. All right, great. Thank you. I appreciate it, and hope I was able to answer your questions.
This concludes part 3 of our 4-part series on doing business with Riverside County. We look forward to seeing you at our meet and greet with the buyers on Monday, September the 15th, 2014, where you will be able to put your new knowledge to work. Thank you and good luck.